There we go.
All right, everyone, welcome back. This is episode 4. Today's topic, we are going to be talking about voice teachers and repertoire. I think that this is something that has been anticipated to bring up because I think that this is something that our listeners who are seasoned with voice teachers and those who are looking for voice teachers or those that are currently taking lessons with a teacher. We also want to talk about repertoire, repertoire that you find yourself attracted to, or repertoire that you're being suggested, or have no idea what to sing. So we kind of want to throw some of these ideas out for our listeners, and hopefully somehow we made something good out of this conversation that we're about to speak on.
Yes.
So I guess let's start with our voice teacher. So Terrence, I guess like this is so many people don't have, I guess, like a list of voice teachers, but how many teachers could you say that you've privately worked with out of your entire career so thus far?
See, because I studied music so early, you know what? I'm not going to count those. I'm going to count after 18. After 18, privately, if you count my current teacher, I will say 2. Only 2.
Wow.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm very picky on who I study with, number one. And number two, some teachers don't want to take on people with certain music backgrounds because they feel like they're going to get questioned and all that kind of thing. So that's not really the case with me. I really was always cautioned to watch out who I study with. Not bad, not good, just one of those things, Be careful because you can inherit their good habits, you can inherit their bad habits, and which I'm sure we'll touch on today. So yeah, to answer your question, I've only studied with 2 people. If you count my adolescent days, it will probably be 4. But I'm counting after my voice changed and I was actually singing tenor. I want to say 2.
Okay.
And what about you?
All right, I see him. Ooh. All right, so I'm gonna do very much like you. Well, actually, I can't. Well, I can. There was like a few teachers I worked with as a kid, but I would say that my true teaching, I'll take it from when I was maybe, I want to say 20 years old. There was my first teacher, and then from there, including the teacher I have now, I would have to say 6. I've had 6 teachers.
So, question: with the first teacher, were you still singing tenor then, or had you already made the switch to countertenor?
Oh, so my first teacher, I partially sang tenor, but for the most part, she was the transitioning teacher. So that's when I started singing countertenor. And then from there, the teachers I had worked with after have all taught like my Fach. So it is, it's been an interesting experience, I could say. I mean, I could understand about picking up bad habits from certain teachers or their good habits. Luckily, I had an amazing friend that helped me kind of maneuver through. Amazing friend. Like if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have met like my teachers here in the city. My first teacher, I could honestly say, is probably my favorite out of all of them.
And why is that?
Because she stressed on me finding my own voice. She refrained from me of listening to other singers. When I was a tenor, she like referred some stuff because I think like, when it's the common voice type, and I'm not trying to like downplay it, but when, you know, there's truth to it. There's more tenors than there are countertenors, there's more sopranos than there are countertenors. It's just like, you know, this is kind of like something that is gaining traction. So she didn't want me to listen to anyone else. She really spent time on singing, and at some point she even refrained from singing herself in our lessons because she's like, I do not want you to sound like me. So it kind of was me finding this sound. And I mean, it's how it has changed, like technique wise. But I still use her for my foundation, not so much on the technical portion of it. I mean, there are some things, I'm not gonna lie. She was like a Swedish soprano. Like, she was beautiful voice herself, kind, intelligent. And she had all these like Swedish tricks. Like, literally, she like went to like the biology department, quick story. And there's like these glass tubes that like they would create in the biolab. And so she literally would make us take like a bowl of water and like bite our teeth on the glass pipe and blow air into the water, but not hard, but almost in a way so that you're feeling an entire vibration into like the chest cavity, ridding any mucus. And I can honestly tell you, even if it was mental, I always felt it worked. Always. Like, there are certain times where if I was even before Dido, I don't know if it was like a nervous tick, I'm literally in my kitchen, like with a straw. Like, that's what we would use as a backup if you didn't have, and blowing into the water and literally just relaxing and releasing all the tension in the face. So, you know, and I've learned too, like with your voice teachers, to not just take something and then go to a new one and forget everything. And then just think that, no, like, you keep the things that work for you and you discard the things that don't work. And I think that for you, with your voice teacher, you have to stress this. You have to stress these things, the things that work and the things that don't. Because you don't want to build on a repertoire that is uncomfortable and that's going to shorten the lifespan of your vocal career or just your joy of music in general. So, long story short, 6, including the one I have now. But yeah, and we actually, me and Terrence actually share the same voice teacher right now.
Now we do, yes. We do. So
right
back
now,
to
yeah.
your first voice teacher. How did the transition, like how did the conversation come up as far as you going from tenor to countertenor? Was it something she suggested? Was it something?
Oh no. This
like,
is, I think I touched a little bit on this in like episode 1, but I'll like give like a little brief. But it literally was something I was joking around with, and she, you know, she was open to the idea. I had her kind of shocked at kind of like the range of the voice. She brought other professors in. And then eventually from there, she's been a great support. But there is something that I wanted to mention in the first episode. I'll never forget. It was my performance. I believe it was it my first or my second? No, it was my first, because I got to pick my second aria. My first aria in a recital at the school was Vivaldi's Sposa son disprezzata. That, you know, the lungs, the sposa, very beautiful, which ironically, Vivaldi stole, or was he used from a different opera, implemented it in, and he dedicated that actual aria to Farinelli. A lot of people do not know that. A lot of people who sing that aria or heard it do not realize that that originally was written for him. The words were switched. But she said something to me before my performance, and I'll never forget, because she knew, and most people thought it was weird. Like, you know, how does he have like such this kind of like innate love for these 17th, 18th century singers, as if like, I always consider them just like Eric Clapton, I believe, who's a famous Baroque historian and 17th century historian as well in London, where he said something like, you know, when I walk into Handel's old apartment, I feel like I'm walking to a place of an old friend. When I look at these pictures on the wall, I feel like I already have some type of familial connection to them. So when learning the stories about these singers, and even though they were these magnificent singers, they were still considered outcasts outside of Italy. They were still considered kind of this misunderstood, this genderless, like you're neither man or woman, like they weren't allowed to marry, like they weren't allowed to live normal lives, like their lives were music. So when I think about this and this sacrifice that a lot of them went through for us to even have opera, because think about it, opera is a recreation of what, they thought the Greeks were performing, some type of stage production, and kind of triggered through. And it was these men that were castrated that were singing these soprano arias that this music was written for because of the laws of the church at the time. So I think that there has to be some type of homage in our community, that, because I see so many jokes are thrown out about it. And I mean, I get it. Like, yes, it's like a funny topic, I guess, to certain people to talk about. But remember, these were children who had no say of their own, who were forced to do something for the sake of music, so that you could be singing Cleopatra on stage, so that Tosca could exist. Like, there is something before than what we have now. But she said something to me, and and I always would bring information to her, like, oh, I got this book, I've been reading, I've been looking at the life of this individual, and just trying to soak in as much information as possible. So I remember I was so nervous before my first recital, and she came over to me and she looked at me in my face and she said, "Make them proud today. Make them proud today." And when I heard that, it was like, mind you, I messed up in the beginning of the aria because I was nervous, but once I got my groove, it was great. I mean, I'm over here like, make them proud, like, girl, the spirit's sitting here watching, like, but but it did something to me. And now when I approach my music and my Baroque music, it is my duty and my obligation to figure out who it was written for, who was the singer, where were they from. It's like, so then I get a full connection to the piece. I'm not just singing a piece because it's beautiful and this is my favorite, composer. I need to figure out, who is this written for? What time was this? Was it performed in a festival? Was it under some, monarch that paid for the production? And I try to really understand emotionally, completely, what the music is asking for, and having the best connection to the person who it was written for, because you will always find commonality in other individuals, whether you see it or not. Like, there was this one castrati, another, I don't mean to go off topic again, but he didn't have a career till later in life. His name, I believe, I'm going to butcher the Italian, I still can't figure out how it's pronounced, but I think it's Paccheriotti or Paccheriotti, I'm not sure, but I know the first in Gasparini. He was a castrato that started very late in his career. And I want to say almost well off into his 30s. And that was extremely uncommon during that time, because you were on the stage 14, 16 years old. You could sing them notes. All right, have someone and go out there and give us a show. And he was so timid about performing, to the point where Charles Burney, another Baroque historian, wrote and said, "I believe it's because of the many years that he hasn't been abusing the voice. He hasn't been going through the intense training as his predecessors, that he was able to retain a subtle sweetness and warmth of timbre that set him apart from his predecessors that were still performing," to the point where there was another castrato who was a total diva, an asshole. Sorry about that, but he literally would kind of demonize singers on stage while they were performing from, like, from the lofts. Until when Paciotti went out, he literally clapped and was just like, it's me. I'm the one who's telling you you are amazing. And so just hearing these stories, and I wish that, like, our students in schools could hear more of these things, on that kind of, like, when opera was really getting that fire behind it and it was moving and being and taking seriously, so that you understand that the music that you're singing, it's so much more than what you see on the page. Your repertoire should not only consist of, yes, it should consist of things that you love, but you need to go in depth and dig even further. Who was the composer? What was he going through in his life when he wrote these things? Was he in poverty? You'll see that emotion and things put into the music. Like Bach, to me, I don't know about you, Terrence, but when you listen to the stories about Bach and his family wanting him to be a lawyer and them putting music completely out, and this man sneaking, trying to just copy music and get some idea, this man walking miles to go hear Buxtehude play, and deep down I probably don't even think he was impressed. But I think that Bach, when you hear his music, you could say that there's almost this yearning for many years that wanted to come out. So it's just like, I gotta get rid of all these emotions and these feelings out. So I think that when you approach his music now, don't sing it in vain. Like that could have been a scenario where he wasn't able to compose the things that we're performing or singing, or these great tunes, you know? So when you're looking at another Bach cantata or another aria, and you're really listening to it and says, why does this sound so emotive? Why is it bringing me to tears? Or why is this one making me feel a sense of like contentment and jubilee in my heart? So I know I went a little bit far, but I wanted to kind of be cohesive to kind of like the importance too of voice teachers. I feel voice teachers should be urging this and drilling these things into the minds of students so that they get the full picture rather than just seeing kind of like narrow, straight notes. I just sing notes, I get applause, and that's all it is, because it's not.
All right, so question. What about if you had to rate the teacher and the teacher you like the least, why would that be? What was that experience like?
Oh, okay. So we can get a little messy. This is where it's tea time. All right. So my first voice teacher, amazing. Like seriously, and I have to start emailing her and letting her know that certain things I started been performing in, my opportunities that's been coming, because I feel that is my gift back to her, is that she planted a seed. And it is, and you know, I understand like we don't want to go into a place of being vain or egotistical, but sometimes we have to own up to the accomplishments that we have in life, because there's people behind us and they're going to look up to us and handle it with grace and humility. Like my mom always used to say, head up, chin down, head up, chin down. So my least. So I literally wrote down my 6. I'm not going to add our current voice teacher because I'm still getting used to this individual. And so far I am very impressed about progress. I mean, golden hands, you already know. So I'm not going to talk about my first or my last, but I will speak on the 4 in between. The 4 in between, I felt I learned, well, I don't even want to say 4, the 3 in between. So after the first and the second before the last. Those were my lesson teachers. My teachers where I learned valuable lessons of what not to do in a lesson. Communication with a student, professionalism, and honesty. When we pay for our lessons, I mean, I know you can relate to this. I don't have an ongoing bank account that somebody's putting $165 in weekly for me to take an hour lesson. These lessons are expensive. My lessons at one point was higher than my rent in New York City. I repeat, my lessons at one point were higher than my rent in New York City. When I calculated it out one day, I did a budget. I was like, hold up. I'm spending $165 an hour for a voice lesson weekly, and I've been consistent. When I noticed that my teachers started caring more about the financial gain rather than doing something, the red flags go off. And that's something that students need to be very cautious about. There are teachers out here, they don't care if they mess you up. They don't care what you sound like. They don't care. You are a check. You are putting money in their pocket. You are paying their bills, and they're using those degrees that they really didn't have to work much for to gain money. Because let's be real, the majority of y'all pay little to nothing to go to school to sing. So that's why there is also a generational gap as to why they don't understand why millennials kind of have this I don't want to say aggressive nature, but a very defensive nature. When it's something that we're paying for, we expect the services because we live in a different time. Things are more expensive. You're the ones who are sitting at home with no debt when I'm expected to pay off my student debt till I'm well off in my 60s. So these are things that are kind of, so those teachers, I mean, I'm just going to be honest. I mean, there were good things that came, and by my honest opinion, there was more bad. There was more bad technique. I had one of these teachers telling me, oh my God, I thought I messed you up last week. I'm so surprised you sound okay now. What? You're so surprised. So was your intentions to, like, if you knew that it was something wrong and me being a student and trusting you and you hearing the issues, for me to come back to be like, oh, I'm so surprised you can still sing. I don't pay $165 for you to take my voice away or to lead me astray. There were certain other singers that did a lot of comparing me to other current singers that were out there that I felt was very dangerous because you are kind of instructing a student to kind of like either pick up good or bad habits. Like you're blatantly telling them that because and two, it was just, I just honestly felt that out of the 3 of the 6, yeah, that's how many there is, they just didn't know what they were doing. And one of them literally treated me like I was not an individual, like I was just money to them. To the point where I felt like one of them I even felt I didn't have to warrant them, I don't even want to work with you anymore. Like I literally, to the point where I just felt that it was just so toxic. And my money, like, and dealing, and I was bartending at the time and dealing with drunk people on the weekends to have to fork that money over to kind of be bamboozled. Oh no. No. She got me all messed up. She got me all twisted. And she looked till this day, like, I think, you know, and mind you, the same teacher, she literally was like, you know, I'm going to give you a little insight about who I am. I had a student who told me one time she just stopped working with me. She didn't give me a reason why. She just stopped working with me. So ever since then, I had it out for her. And in my mind, I'm like, aren't you a little bit too old for this? Like, isn't this, I mean, people come and go. It's just like a service. Like, what if I get a better carpet cleaner down the street? My old carpet cleaner is going to come and burn my house down because I went and found somebody new. Like, girl, get yourself together. You are too old. But she literally said, oh, I saw this same student come in for an audition and I was educating it. And I knew that she knew it was an automatic no for me. Even though she improved and she sounded beautiful, I still gave her the no because she never did right by me the first time. And that's something I want to talk about and make it very clear.
Not French.
People like that need to get mollywopped.
Like that's what if that was the key to opening up her career? Like that's crazy.
Yes, because of how you're feeling at that. And that's literally God was telling me, she ain't the one for you. Because if she could do this to her, now imagine what she'll do to you. And I think me being a countertenor, like, I'm not gonna lie, like, my teachers over time have always, except for one, I didn't list her up here because it was nothing but negative stuff. Oh, I don't think you have that great of a voice. There's nothing really special about you. You'll never have a career in opera. Nobody will ever put you in a dress on stage. I don't care what they're doing in Europe. You're not getting that. You are better off in a church loft where nobody can see you and they can just maybe hear you in the choir. A teacher told me that. A teacher I was paying money to. Money. And what happened? I got casted in an opera. Not only that, I got to play a female role. I got to wear a dress. I'm not singing in a choir loft. I have an upcoming performance, which I'm entirely grateful for, that because of something I worked so hard for, I'm seeing the fruit of something. But this goes to show how dangerous these teachers can be. How devastating, and I'm not the good, just in a negative. You can just crush their dreams. I had one teacher, another quote: death to the dream killers. Death to the dream killers, because you've already killed these people by telling them they can't do what they want to do by living out their dreams. What's the sense of them living? What pleasure do you get out of that? I think there's a certain way, and I think we were talking about this before, where I think voice teachers like Nats needs to be more present, and there needs to be more vetting about these people on websites, just like you guys want to treat social media and be sensitive about, oh, people, do the same thing for our educators. Because there's educators who out there who have racist undertones in their teachings. There's certain educators out there have jealous undertones in their teachings, because in this industry, it feels that because you didn't make it, nobody else should make it. Rather than if one opportunity closed, how didn't you know that chance that right when you gave up, the next one was your time and you missed it? Or if the opportunities are not there, create them. Make them listen. Who do you want listening to anyways? Are you trying to live for the fame? Are you trying to sing because you feel like it is who you are? I think we have to challenge and question ourselves before we sign up with a voice teacher, before we definitely touch our rep. But this is something that is so essential. Like, do you agree, Terrence, or how do you feel about this? Because I see it struck some nerves in you.
Well, I mean, I'm all for being realistic. But there's a way that you do things. I don't agree with anybody killing anybody's dream, because that's something that's so personal, so raw, so
human.
human. But on the same token, if I was a teacher and I had a student and the student maybe didn't have the best raw talent, I would just push them in a different direction. Like, hey, maybe you will be an excellent educator, versus somebody on stage. And as people, we have to understand in this field is subjective. Two people could sit in the audience, hear one person perform, and hear two different things. So they are going to hear two different things.
Yeah, 100%.
It's what you make of it. But on the same token, we shouldn't be out here. When I say we, I mean people in positions, whether it's a voice teacher, a theory teacher, whatever kind of instructor, people of authority. We shouldn't be out here unnecessarily crushing people's dreams because we have failed. We have failed at what we were to do. Whether you didn't become the concert pianist you thought you were going to be, whether you didn't get concert master with the New York Philharmonic, or whether you felt that you should have been, the lead soprano or the lead tenor at Chicago Lyric or the Metropolitan. It's not for you to take out your unaccomplishments on students. It's for you to give what you have, educate them, and pass it on. Otherwise, you don't need to be teaching.
100%.
You don't need to be passing on that negative energy. You don't need to pass on, those your doubt and your, for whatever reason, you don't need to pass that on.
We know what it feels like. Go ahead.
No, so we have enough of that. We don't need to be passing that on.
Yeah, no, because to me it translates to me that like music was not their first love.
Or it could be they can't get back at the powers that stop them from having their career, so they take it out to the people that they can, take it out on.
But that's the thing that just boggles my mind. It's like I feel that we need to be more consistent, even maybe starting like a page or something to where the voice teachers are listed in your area and the students are able to leave legit reviews. I rate my professor, I rate my voice teacher. So that these students know that when they are out of school, and I mean, this goes to students who, if you've had to leave school abruptly, if you weren't able to finish school, if you're deciding to take a break, so that you are not kind of like sitting at home twiddling your thumbs, kind of like not growing on your technique, but you're being able to have access to look into your area to find someone who either could direct you, help you, or even push you into places that's going to bring opportunities. I feel like that's another thing too. It's that sometimes we look for voice teachers we know that are kind of like already established. So we're thinking, okay, if I take lessons with this person, I'm bound to kind of get a nudge to maybe work with this. But let me tell you something. Out of those 3, 2 of them had connects that I needed, and they never introduced me. So that's always not going to work. It depends on, honestly, it depends to me on, you have to have some type of already self-care and love with yourself to realize that. And it's just so difficult for me to even speak on this because there are those teachers I thought had their best interests for me. I really did. Even if I was to even have a conversation and to be like, you know, you made me feel this way, this I didn't agree with, and so, I feel because the type of people I know they are, they would defend why they did things or said things. Even though now, like, it just makes me think that over time, oh, those were just opinions. Those weren't even like technical things, because the teacher that we have now, when I go to him and he'll ask me, how do you know already, like, if you're going above the staff, how are you doing that raise already? Like, we haven't even gone through these things. Like, you're doing things naturally that I'm seeing. And I would tell him, like, no, there were teachers along the way who beat these kind of techniques into my mind. So now the things that I realized that worked, like when I went home and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I can get up there, or oh my gosh, I can get down there, or oh, it feels great here, I'm going to keep that. And anything that I felt caused pain or fatigue, I low key would lie and say I'm doing what they said, knowing I wasn't. That's the thing too. It's just kind of like, they'll sit there and say, are you doing this? And when you do what they're saying, it hurts, and they don't realize that. So your body already is going to adjust so it's not feeling pain. You're sitting on the couch all day and your legs starting to hurt. You're not going to continue sitting there. You're going to stretch it out. Be like, ooh, I don't like the way that feel. The same thing is with our voices. It's just like, you know, master classes are the same way. I'm sorry, I know we're having a conversation about master classes, but there are some times I'm a master class and I'm like, sir, whatever you just relayed to me does not make any sense. It's not working. I'm still singing the same way, and you just said it sounds great. Like, but there are some miracle workers out there that literally know the voice within and out. And these are the people I feel should be writing our books for education. These are the people who I feel should be sitting on a board somewhere, having, you know, administrators vet the people that are allowed. Just because you have a degree does not mean you could teach, sing, perform. That is a piece of paper. I went to school with people who are not musicians now, that are housewives with like 4 babies, and music is a thing of the past. Music is a thing of the past. And they got a degree. And it's just like, that's why I feel for us, you know, I'm glad we have a degree in vocal performance. So we're experiencing that rather than just getting a general degree in music. But I do feel that I just wish there was I just wish it was better. I mean, anything could be better than what it is, but I just feel like we need this, I guess, like this new roster, these new legends that are coming up to kind of really take hold of certain things and kind of bring back that camaraderie, bring back, you know, COVID decimated opera houses, bring back small opera houses that are trying to come up, small companies that are trying to get, you know, that life support in them. And I feel like that will bring more opportunity to all of us rather than aspiring to sing in like 5 places around the world. Why do we just have 5? This is a big planet. We have 5 places, you know? But yeah, so how you feel about vocal rap? Are you going to touch on this a little bit more?
Just this, and then we could definitely move on to vocal rap. My only thing I'll say about the rate my professor, rate my thing, is that in defense of the voice teachers, not all of them, but some of y'all, us singers, you have to do the work, and it takes time. You're not gonna have overnight success like some people feel that they should. You're not gonna go in one lesson, learn something, then tomorrow, you know, king of the high seas. That's not how the voice works. Voice is a muscle, just like your arms, you know, your biceps, your hamstrings. You have to work them out. And the reason why I made that comparison is because I would hate for an excellent voice teacher to get a student who didn't feel that they got out. The voice teachers are voice teachers, and they're not magicians. They cannot make it sound like something other than what you have, other than what the man upstairs gave you. So because they felt that they went in those lessons and they came out sounding the same or very little improvement, now they go and rate my professor. Now they give the man or the woman a bad review, and that's not fair. So now that becomes a problem because the people,
and that's bound to happen.
That's bound to happen. And now we're reading the reviews, And people that would have otherwise maybe picked that professor to study with them won't pick that professor because the review that they're looking at is saying that this professor doesn't know what he's doing or he or she's doing. They don't know what they're talking about. I didn't improve,
Yeah.
So that's the dangerous side of something like that. I'm with it, but I'm not with it 100% because there are plenty of singers who are lazy and who want the easy way out and who want to go to 1 or 2 lessons and then expect to sing Tosca, or go to 1 or 2 lessons and expect to sing, Cavaradossi or Calaf or, Xerxes or Giulio Cesare. And that's not how it works. It does not work like that. It takes time. Now, I am in agreement. We don't need none of them negative teachers, and we definitely don't need teachers who don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Definitely don't need that. Before we leave this topic, I want to ask you, since we focused on voice teachers, in your opinion, if you could take some Play-Doh and create the perfect voice teacher, what would it consist of?
Oh, if I was to do that, my first part that would have to be in this teacher is, I would have to say empathy, because I think that the teacher has to understand that this student is in the process of learning and is going to make mistakes.
They're going to mess up.
And are they going to do great things? And I think the teacher has to be able to have a emotional connection to that student. I don't think that it's all about seeing what's on the page, I teach you what I know, and you walk out of the room. Because it almost makes it seem like, so then that's when it's treated like a transaction. But it would definitely be, empathy would be one. I would definitely need a teacher that has definitely some type of physiological knowledge of my instrument. Like, I was blessed enough that my first teacher was also a speech pathologist. So like, she had the whole 3D model of the vocal mechanism, like turning it, playing with the chords, showing you which muscles are maneuvering, even though I had a medical background, so it helped. But I feel like not completely well-versed, but just to let them kind of understand how things work, because sometimes when you're just saying diaphragm or air quality and so they're really not understanding until like I went online and saw a cadaver and was like, oh, that's what the diaphragm looks like. Wow, it does kind of have like a whoopee cushion looking kind of quality to it. So I think that's definitely one. Empathy, have some type of knowledge about the physical makeup of what we're using. I think that teacher should also be constantly learning. That teacher, just as the student, just because you've attained some type of level, you need to be well informed with new operas, new repertoire, what's on the demand now for your student, or what are directors and artistic conductors looking for? What you have to stay relevant. So you need some type of relevancy, empathy, physiological knowledge of the mechanism. I think as well too, I think that the teacher, and this is funny because most people would say, oh, the teacher should know how to sing. I would say that wouldn't be an issue for me. If I feel that this instructor or this voice teacher is well trained and they understand the voice and they don't sing themselves, like me, I mean, I think we talked about this yesterday, and a lot of cases, that's what actually is happening. And a lot of these voice teachers too are instrumentalists. So they hear, like, their intonation is on point. So they're going to kind of translate some of that into the music, if they have that background. So I think so far that's it. I don't think there's really anything else I'm looking. I mean, affordable. Can the hands say affordable? Like, I am also affordable, because that's another thing too. It's like, I understand like what we do is not easy, but what we do sometimes is so expensive, and we don't realize that like those younger generations are not, like, the price of taking lessons and the price of things have increased. So I think that also deters students from actually taking a lesson because they're not sure if they can afford it. So, and that's another thing too, is I just wish that like our communities and our public schools and public institutions allowed more access. And I think that would actually help vet out a lot of things by already making sure that these teachers have employment and putting them in government assisted programs of, marginalized communities that like, your child can take lessons for free because we have a subsidy from the government, and we're getting paid, and we have a love for the craft, and we want to relay that on to the kids in our communities. Because like me and you and another singer said, we looking at these babies and we don't know, that could be another Mozart in the making, that could be another Verdi over there, picking up her little stuff from the bodega. You can't just sit there and just assume that because they don't have access, it's not something that they are interested or would ever be good at.
Exposure is very important.
Yeah.
Exposure is very important, because I will say with a straight face that had I not been exposed to classical music, I would have most likely never got involved with it. Just not as a bad thing, just I was never exposed to it. I was never exposed. And um yeah. One little thing, and then we can move on to repertoire. I would say out of all the things you said, the one thing I will add is that we have to understand, at least when I was younger, um, that a lot of times our voice teachers to performers in some capacity serve as mentors. So I know when I was coming up, my early voice teachers, before we opened our mouths, we were taught how to walk on stage. We were, taught to acknowledge the accompanist. We were taught a slew of things: what you wear in the audition, what you don't wear, uh, repertoire choices, just a whole slew of things that had nothing to do per se with singing out your mouth. It was It was the whole 360. So I would add that. I would add, that I would prefer to have a voice teacher who was more of a mentor, and who wanted to be that, right?
Your biggest support, your biggest fan. It's your biggest fan.
Your biggest fan and your biggest critic. So that's
Two
the
in
one.
one.
That's the one thing that they are allowed to be, because you won't get better if oh, you did good, and they don't mention the things that need improvement. That's another thing that this hypersensitivity has brought in. It's okay. Somebody can tell you didn't do 100% well. You're a human being. You're allowed to mess up, and you're allowed to get better.
Especially if they see it in you.
Right. Especially if they see it in you. Now, delivery is important. You don't go to, you sounded like shit. No, that's not how we do things. But, and however, it is very important to have this minimal line of respect, that if your teacher says, you know what, Terrence, that didn't sound too good, you need to check your intonation, that I'm not going crying on a pillow because I couldn't take that statement. No, that's a fair, valid statement.
Yeah.
My intonation needed work. Or I was singing an arpeggio and my registration was off. Okay, that's a valid, I need to work on that. And that's another thing, that I think teachers are kind of, I won't say afraid in the sense that there's fear, but afraid in the sense like, oh, I can't tell them that they don't sound good because they'll report me. No, that defeats it. That's why I'm glad that I had the voice teachers that I had who weren't scared to say, listen, that's not it.
Yeah, and I think I mean we definitely need that.
And fix it up. And then, if you're having a problem, fine, let me know and we will figure it out.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. Voice teachers are not going to know everything, especially if you're new to studying with that person. It takes a while for them to learn the ins and outs of your voice. You have to sing different things for them to hear different things, and it doesn't happen in 3 or 4 months. I mean, they can have a good idea, but they won't have the full picture. I would say you have to give them almost a year of you singing with them getting to know your voice, how you sound when you're sick or you're a little under the weather, how you sound when you're not warmed up, how you sound when you're at your best. How's the coloratura? Can the voice move? How's the intonation? there's how are you stylistically? Do you have a natural affinity to decrescendo and crescendo? There's so many things for a voice teacher to digest, right? Because they are the beginning and sometimes the end of where it starts and stops. So that's why we wanted to make this video, because they are very important. No matter who
100%.
teaches you theory, yeah, it may be easier to learn it from certain professors, but you put 4/4, B flat, da da da, it's going to be the same on a piece of paper, no matter what theory teacher picks it up.
Yeah, yeah,
So
you are
with
right.
voice teachers, it's not like that.
Yeah, no,
So
voice teachers, it is definitely, it almost becomes familial in a way. Like I've heard people even use the word like, oh, she's my vocal mama, or like this person, like he's my good uncle, like somebody that really is looking out for their student. And it becomes to the point where they are knowing the ins and out of your instrument, which I think is a beautiful thing. It's like,
absolutely,
because that means that somebody literally understands your unique sound. They
they
know
can help you
what
with
you
your
like.
repertoire. They can help you
Yeah.
with what they feel you need. It's a beautiful thing. I mean, what you said hit it on the head. Because a lot of times singers give their voices that nicknames because essentially that's what they are. They're
Yeah.
helping them find work. They're helping them. They're going above and beyond that 60-minute window, basically.
Encouraging them, pushing them into the directions. And that's what a voice teacher should do. I mean, the one thing that I feel voice teachers should do is to be upfront and honest before they work with anybody, is say, what is it that you want to do?
If they
From
ask
the
you that,
get-go.
9 times out of 10, if they ask you that, that's the person for you. If they
Yeah.
ask you that 9 times out of 10, that is the person for you.
Like I literally, like, even the teacher that we have now, he asked me that.
He asked me that too.
He asked me and said, now, Yvonne, what do you want to do with all this? You're bringing me all these things in. Like, what is the goal? Where do you see yourself? And like when I told him, he literally was like, all right, so then if that's what we need, then we have to put ourselves in that position. Another
Same
mentor of
here.
mine, she did the same thing to me recently. She literally made me write down and told me yes or no to things I should be learning. And literally her response is, once we get these down, then I will push you in the direction of who you need to talk to and where you need to be to get this done. That's what the thing is as an educator, specifically a voice teacher, what it is that we are called to do. If I was to ever take up a group of students, first of all, I would have to make sure I feel confident enough to know I know what I'm doing. Two, that I am not potentially harming. It's almost as if like you're taking that Hippocratic vow as a physician. I will not cause any intentional harms to others. I will always have the best intentions for my patient. As a voice teacher, you have to take some type of internalized moral oath to yourself and know that if you cannot help someone, be honest about them. But you have to know you have assets. You cannot be a voice teacher and be by yourself. You cannot be a voice hermit. I understand, like, sometimes you are not having in the limelight, but you still need to be aware of what's going on, who's teaching what, who's performing what. You have to make sure that you're going to supply that student outlets. You have to be the one to make the decision whether you feel that student is lazy or if that student is productive, whether you're wasting your time or whether it's an investment. You are investing your legacy in a way onto these students. The bright side of it is that yes, you are getting, making a name for yourself and you're getting financial gains. But the beauty out of it is that you're sending out students that embrace their unique tones and timbres and musicality and are out there making what we do more accessible to the public and more understood to those who already have built up a wall of ignorance. So,
All right, so we're going to chat briefly about repertoire, picking repertoire. It won't be too long, and Yvonne is going to share his thoughts on picking rep. Specifically, maybe he'll give us some examples of good arias and scenes and things of that nature from the countertenor repertoire. and I'll give my suggestions as well. And so when picking repertoire, Yvonne, what is the first thing that you now before I ask him that, when you're younger, your voices should be picking everything you say because
Yeah.
there's a certain level of experience you need to have. I would say your first 2 years of collegiate study, you should be singing pretty much whatever your voice teacher tells you to sing.
Yeah, I agree.
Unless they give you liberty to go, bring music to them, you should really be singing everything that they give you. Okay, so now that we got that out the way, let's just say this is your third year, your senior year, or your graduate studies or whatever. You're putting together maybe a press kit, maybe an audition package, or maybe you're just putting together a recital. What is one of the what are one of the first things that you look for when picking repertoire?
Okay, so when picking repertoire, I've always been a little different. My repertoire, I feel, is extremely undermined. I feel that the repertoire in early music has been limited. I feel that there is a group of individuals who chose what they feel is the best content of what the period has to offer. So when looking at repertoire, me personally, I never had like an attachment to what was the selection. Like in music history, when Baroque things would come, I'm like, yeah, that's beautiful, but there has to be more. Like, why is this the creme de la creme of an aria choice or a rep choice? And so I took it upon myself to find my own voice. And just like as I did in my voice lessons, I did in my choosing of repertoire. Granted, you can't just always go out and perform things that you find personally. I mean, you have to work. That's something that I'm not trying to stray off into. But out of the selection, pick what you like. So like for me, there's like the go-to operas. Like it's either Giulio Cesare or you're even looking, I think they're doing like Alcina a little bit sometimes now, or Ronaldo or Rodelinda. And personally, there's certain arias in there that I think are gorgeous and there's like great rep. But because my voice type sometimes feels it's a little too low for me and a little sits in an area of the voice where I don't feel most alive, I've refrained from picking up those arias. But I recently, had a talk with a mentor of mine who says, even if they're a little low, show them what you can do in the da capo. Give them an idea to put something else on that's a little bit more difficult than the regular. But me, I would always tend to, I'm definitely like an IMSLP, like fanatic. Like if I am looking for something, 9 times out of 10, it's on IMSLP. And if it's not, there's like a European website that I use. If I can't find it there, I'm going to find it. Whether I'm contacting the conservatory or the museum, send me the manuscript. Let me see. And that's another thing that I'm also guilty of. If I find a piece of music that is not in modern notation, if I find the manuscript, I will transcribe it. I will sit there painstakingly for hours making it so that I can perform it for people to hear. So I would have to say, like, my choice of repertoire it's very unique as my voice type. I am trying to sing things that singers of the past that shared a very similar tessitura as what were they singing? So then I kind of take those and then I display it to the public or in a recital setting and now make people in my field think, wait a minute, well, I didn't know like that type of music existed, or we never looked at that opera. And I mean, it's happening in Europe now. Like they're literally premiering operas that haven't been heard in 300 years, 250 years, that are literally rivaling the operas that are kind of always being performed at these major opera houses. And they're being performed at these smaller opera houses and getting such big, social media is a blessing in that sense, because it's like now you're competing with this huge opera house and it's like you're bringing in these fantastic, talented singers who love what's going on. Oh, you take my money, take the money. Let me call a loan out. But you have to when choosing your repertoire, you have to have a sense of why. Wouldn't you agree?
I'll tell us our next extent. So let me ask you this. For a beginner, let's just say you're beginning you've established that you're a countertenor. Let's say
Mm-hmm.
let's say mezzo soprano-ish, maybe not an alto countertenor, maybe not a soprano. What would be 3 pieces or arias that you would suggest specifically for somebody just starting out?
Okay. Okay, that's a little easier. I would say go with what you see. Go where the work is first. That's an honest opinion because you need to make sure that you're at least getting some type of recognition. Now, when it comes to roles, like if it was a mezzo soprano singing, I would kind of look at anything that the castrato like Senesino did. He was known to be kind of like alto-ish. You know, he kind of sometimes went up to an E. I think one time I saw something where he went up to an F. Um, I think that Giulio Cesare, of course, the title role would be something that a good mezzo would, because a lot of mezzo sopranos take on that role. And since it's a title role, that's something that I would kind of tell, specifically even to start learning some type of sense of coloratura. But if that is too difficult, I would go to maybe the secondary role of Tolomeo, which also kind of sits in a mezzo quality, a little lower than Caesar, but kind of like building something in. And then for my kind of mezzo-y sopranos with an extension, I would look at Handel's Agrippina, the role of Nerone. That sits high. I believe the highest note that he's reaching is an A. And then there also is another role, I believe, Ottone as well, too, that kind of sits in that low mezzo register quality. So definitely, if you're looking at Baroque opera, go on the major opera house and see which Baroque operas they have done. And, you know, I'm 99.9% or 100% sure there is a male high voice role. Some of them, unfortunately, kind of sit on the lower side. Handel had an infatuation for low voice sounds. You know, it wasn't all about sopranos to him. I remember reading somewhere, I think he said that they were actually annoying. And they were like, in one case, he actually like tried to throw Cuzzoni out of a window. She like refused for something and he got so mad at her. And the people in London are like, you know, just chilling. And then here goes the soprano like screaming and Handel in the back like, what you say? Like, I mean, she sang the music. I mean, that's another thing too. These composers were abusive, but it is, I would kind of refer them to, and then look at Handel's contemporaries. That's something I would do. If I look at Handel and I'm seeing that the rep that is being done by this composer, I want to look at his contemporaries. I am always a person to say, well, who says that that person's the best? Well, we need to kind of look to see what else is going on. You should always think that way, of understanding of specifically in a period, what was going on. Stylistically, like I told you, Terrence, the other day, or maybe a few months ago, there's a contemporary of Mozart that if I was to play his music, you would be like, oh, that's Mozart hands down. No, it's not. It's not Mozart. It's an individual who taught Mozart, one of his teachers, and already has that sound. So that's why when I see people already think like, oh, that's Mozart is in his own caliber. To a certain extent, yes. But he also had contemporaries that would rival his operas and the things that he's done. It's because we've chosen, it's like you're picking a history book. You can't see all these books and you pick one book and you say, this is the best. Everything else doesn't matter. You can't do that. Imagine we do that to ourselves. That singer is the best, the rest are second rate. That's just your opinion. You know, just like you said, one person sings one thing, 2 people are going to hear 2 different sounds. One person is exposed to a piece of music, 2 people are going to rate that music differently. But what I would say for those countertenors that are looking for the rep, my biggest concern is, even though, yes, this is what's on the stage, yes, this is what's putting money into your bank accounts, do a diagram, go back to a Venn diagram, put both roles or the roles around, pick the things you like and the things you don't, and figure out in that middle section, who wins, where does your heart and your emotions lead to, and add that to your roster. Now, if you audition for a role and they give you the one that you didn't want it, that's a hairy situation. I mean, that's to the artist's discretion, but don't limit yourself sometimes too in that aspect. Even if you're not feeling so much an emotional connection, that's where technique should kick in. That's where professionalism should kick in. And that should also be that diverse choosing of being open to other repertoire and not just being confined to just one.
All right. I'm going to go in a different direction with it. So for me, beginning, my voice teacher always made sure I had a healthy diet of certain composers. So I sang a lot of Bach, I sang a lot of Mozart. We did a little bit of Rossini and Donizetti to keep the voice fresh and moving. So I would say if you're a beginning singer and you are a tenor, you can always start off with some Mozart. I know a lot of us don't want to sing it. It's not for tenors. It's not. Well, I don't know. Some people may disagree. You know, I know when I got Il Mio Tesoro, I didn't want to sing it. It's not my favorite. My favorite piece. Just it's just not. But it'll help you with moving your voice. It has a lot of melismas. You know, uh, putting you right in that passaggio place. A lot. You know, Mozart writes for the tenors really he want to make sure that you have mastered that passaggio. That's a good one. So Il Mio Tesoro, most teachers are probably going to assign you that anyway. These built needs, of course, from the Magic Flute. Another good one, Ovi Angstlicht from his Abduction, and then of course Una Amorosa from believe Cozy. That's another one, you know, that it those E's to those A's. And you know, for us tenors, some of us that's very difficult. But once you master it, you'll be able to sing the Donizetti stuff and the Bellini stuff and you know all of the romantic composers a little easier. So I would say pick two Mozart arias. Um, if you want to go English rep, Now Sleeps the Crimson Petal is a beautiful one. To work on your dynamic singing. Everything does not have to be forte, fortissimo. You do need to learn how to sing piano and mezzo piano. If you Schubert, you know, the king of Lieder.
Yes, that's a good one.
Any one of his songs, Wanderers Nachtlied, Der Neugierige, Die Forelle, there are a bunch of pieces you can add because remember, you always want to build your operatic repertoire, but you also want to build your recital repertoire as well.
Yeah.
You can go right over to, I know a lot of accomplished singers don't sing too much forêt because a lot of us sing it when we're, you know, in school. So forêt, if you have a good ear, Debussy has a lot of French melody that's good. But my personal favorite is anything by Henri Duparc. So Lamentation au Voyage, Fidele, the Lament, all those, you know, he has a book. His stuff is really good. Very important thing, and I'm sure voice teachers, well, hopefully voice teachers are saying this, also pick things that your technique match. So
yes,
I don't want to pick music that you're not technically compatible with at that moment, you know, because especially for a lot of us in general, sopranos, mezzos, whatever, tenors, basses, baritones, everybody, we hear people, and I've seen with tenors, you see it all the time. They run to pick up Nessun Dorma and they can't sing Nessun Dorma, or they run to pick up A Mes Amis, and just because they can hit a high C, they can't sustain 9 of them. So you know, and remember when we're singing in the extremes of our voices, we want to be very cautious because our voices are like rubber bands, and what happens to a rubber band when you pull it too hard, it'll pop. And not only if it doesn't pop, the elasticity, it will be loose as a firm to tight. So you want to make sure that, you know, you're picking things. If you get to a point where you're picking your own rep, you're picking things that are technically appropriate. Now, another thing that I have to touch on is a lot of teachers or some coaches or whomever will tell you, don't pick arias where you wouldn't sing the role on stage. So example, let's use a famous example. Nessun Dorma. I will say 85 of the tenors that sing it in concert cannot sing the role of Caliph on stage. That's not a shot at them. Is that it's a dramatic tenor.
It's a true thing. It's a true
It's a
statement that you're saying.
dramatic tenor role, and most of us, myself included, don't have the pipes for that. Not in a negative way. We're just not dramatic tenors. But does that mean you cannot sing in concert Nessun Dorma? No, it doesn't mean that. You can definitely learn it. You just have to know that you wouldn't be able to sing that role on stage.
Yeah.
Know about the orchestration. If you're going for that and you're doing it with orchestra, know whether you're going to have a 20 piece, 40 piece, 60 piece. Moving to Wagner land over 100 piece orchestras. So definitely know you don't have to abide by the Fox system like it's the Bible. You can clearly see things in and out of it, but those systems recognize commonalities. They're not strict because we can go down a list and there are a slew of singers who sing in between certain Fox, and that's perfectly fine. You just have to make sure you know what's appropriate for your voice type.
Your voice.
So if you're a more of an accomplished singer, and you're a tenor, I would move on from Cozy and Don Giovanni and the Magic Flute, and I would graduate towards Idomeneo, Mitridate, and La Clemenza di Tito. But Mitridate, I would definitely leave for an advanced experienced singer because the role has a lot of, it's very high.
You are working.
It has a lot of leaps and jumps, and you will mess up your voice if you're not really
vocally prepared.
If you're not that type of tenor, and that's fine. I'm not a Mitridate tenor. My vocal strengths lie more of Idomeneo and Clemenza di Tito. So that's another outlet for people to use. For my heavier voices, early Verdi works, the lighter Puccini stuff. But I will say this: you gotta play the game. So when I say play the game, for my lyric tenors, learn Kejeli da Manina. It's a crowd favorite. It's La Boheme. There will always be an opera house doing La Boheme. I understand it shouldn't be like that, but you have to play the game that is handed to you. So definitely have your favorites. Learn your Una Futiva Lagrima. Learn your La Donna Immobile. You don't have to sing them, but have them in your back pocket, as my teacher used to say, because those are the fan favorites, and those, they can win you a competition, If you have the high notes, you can do Amez Ami. But if you don't have it, don't force yourself to do that. What were you gonna say?
No, another thing I would also add on to that list would also be for, I think with any rep, research something that hasn't been done. At least have something in your repertoire to give a thought. Like for instance, like in our recent recital, when you did the piece soliloquy, I've never heard that.
A lot of people said I was surprised. A lot of people.
Yeah, but it did something to me where it literally at that moment, everything else kind of was maybe something I've heard before, or of course it's like, you're building up the standard rep during this recital, and that's something that is not often performed. So when hearing it, I'm like, okay, this is a beautiful piece. Not only is he killing it, like, I need to go figure out what this is. It's like, that's the piece that makes people, when they leave there, they're going to remember. You know what I mean? And I think sometimes in our rep, we get so concerned about somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that, somebody's doing this. Yes, have those prepared. But you also, like you could even say, let me ask, what drew you to that aria? What drew you to that piece of music?
Soliloquy has been in my repertoire because John W. Work, the gentleman who composed it, was a professor at Fisk. And when I was at Fisk, I was doing my theory teacher there wrote a piece for me, and he was in the process of writing some more, and we were looking for different pieces to do it was a composers of Fisk concert. And so that's how soliloquy came to me. And it's always just been something that just sat in my voice very well.
Yeah.
Then as I got older, the words meant so much more to me. When I performed this time, this was my first time singing in a recital setting in a very long time. I was extremely nervous.
You did
Um,
so well.
the words, because I'm older now, the words, and that's fine, that's fair. Like when you're 21, singing about death and life is not going to mean the same when you're 35. It's just not. It's not. When you go out there and you get some whips and lashes, and not literally, when you
And
get some seasoning,
you experience the world.
right?
Yeah.
It means something a little more different. So this time around, and I will always have, whenever I do a recital, as much as I can control it, I will have soliloquy on
In your lineup.
in my lineup. I do
Yeah.
agree with you too, and you made an excellent point. You made a very excellent point that a lot of singers fall in the bad habit of. Please make your repertoire diverse. We don't want to
Yeah.
hear the same thing all the time. And I'm a singer. I get it. I get it. I don't want to go to 5 different concerts and 5 different tenors sing Una futiva lagrima. I don't want to hear it 5 times.
Yeah.
It's okay. I'll give you guys a gem. I don't like sharing my little gems, but there's a beautiful German aria, Magisha Turner. It's gorgeous, 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 gorgeous. You want to float. It teaches you how to float and all of those things. Pick that instead. But like he said, research, be diverse. So if you're gonna do
Yeah.
una fotiva lagrima, make sure you have something that's not as well known. There's nothing wrong with singing that. There's nothing wrong with singing Nessun Dorma if you have it, or
Have you?
or Schubert's Widmung, or Schumann, excuse me, Widmung, or An die Musik, which we all heard 3 million times. It's fine, but challenge not only you, challenge your voice teachers to find some
Yes.
obscure repertoire that fits what you're doing in your lessons. Everything is not Mozart. Example, there are a bunch of Bach cantatas that do just as well as Mozart as far as teaching you how to sing lines and making sure your registration is properly done and all of those things. Nothing wrong with Mozart, but there are Bach cantatas and oratorios that do the same thing. And
Yeah, no, that's I totally see that. Like, I mean, when I sat there and I heard you perform that piece, it was almost to the point where, like, and I admired my peers and I give it to them for what they were performing. And I mean, that's something that I think we want to touch on eventually too, is kind of just like, do you feel that singers today are connected emotionally or are fully engaged
we
in
had
what
a
they're
nice long
singing?
conversation.
And the thing is, I threw out the term generic so many times because I feel like singers just fall into that part of our performance capabilities of just kind of, going with the flow, not kind of, being, all right, I'm just going to perform it. This is how it's done. This is what's expected. Thank you, and leave. Like, where I literally told you, I was like, I was in the hall. Sometimes there are certain singers where it's just like, I just saw dead inside. Like the eyes didn't have a shimmer or they weren't engaged. And it made me feel uncomfortable to the point, like, then why do I want to be here? If you don't want to be here, I don't want to be here, But I mean, like, you came onto the stage and I mean, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, what he about to sing? And then just from even the pianist it was just a full performance. And I think that is something that I think would be such an asset to you encouraging young tenors or young singers to build repertoire, is because to me, that is kind of like the golden gun of the arsenal. It's like everybody knows the bullets you're going to shoot, but that one was kind of like, oh, like, oh, I'm bleeding. Like, what is he doing? And I think that's something that, and I feel like those pieces should be personal. I feel it should be a reason as to why, even if the audience or even your voice teacher is to be like, I don't understand why you're picking this, make us understand why. Make us feel what you feel when you perform, because you don't know whose life you're changing at that moment that's listening to you. You don't know if that was the last performance they said they were going to attend because they couldn't take the pressures of the world anymore, or someone in the audience that thought of quitting their career, or someone who's going through a bad breakup, or somebody who just lost someone, you don't know what performance or that attachment of what you built in your rep is going to do to someone. It's so
That's
much
the goal.
more.
That's the goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
It's much more than just going and just singing. It's when I go out, me personally, I want to figure out what you think too, Terrence. I think this would be interesting, is when I go and perform, yes, oh God, I am nervous. Like my hands turn to icicles when I am cold. Like the blood leaves my hands, and people will be like, "Are you dead?" I'm like, I don't know.
I start sweating. I'm like, ugh.
Not me. Mine's are literally, I've been known in a line, like when we're all sitting down, getting ready for a recital, and you're all sitting together. I've been known to touch the person next to me, like, I'm so nervous. And they're like, what the, like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm dead. I think I'm not going to survive. But I've noticed that if I'm not cold, my performances kind of are like, but when I am nervous, I have learned to kind of use that energy and try to kind of portray those feelings that I'm feeling into what I'm singing. But I want to get back to answering this question. When you perform, do you like say a little prayer to yourself? Do you say something like, let me kind of inspire the audience? Let me, just give me that sense of feeling that what I'm doing is right. Let me go out and enjoy this. Let me, what goes through your mind?
Oh, 3 million things. But I think ultimately for me is try to enjoy what I'm doing, because that reads into the audience. And when you say enjoy, it doesn't have to be ha 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 ha, because sometimes the piece that you're singing is not ha 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 ha. It's like, oh my God, that's
Yeah.
So I always want to try to make sure that I'm enjoying it. I try to forget who pissed me off 10 minutes ago before I walked on stage. And I just try to be in the moment with me and the audience, because that's what it's about. That's what, otherwise, why am I doing it? They can turn on their MP3 and CD players or whatever. I'm saying, Lord, I done dated myself. Streaming apps, excuse me. And they can play right. They can play who they want to play. What's different about me in front of them in this live performance? So that's more or less my target. Hopefully you're prepared enough that you can and I think this goes into, like you said, we'll talk about it. There's a very thin line between I think being vulnerable, and I think a lot of us are afraid, myself included, because when you're vulnerable, that means you're exposed.
Yeah.
But if you can manage to just hold on, it probably will create one of the best music moments you could probably have in your lifetime. Now, just to refer to that performance, I already knew I was emotional. I'm a Cancer. People don't get that from me, and I'm fine with that. That's fine. Maybe younger, I was more emotional, but I was so emotional, and I was just like trying to just hold on to make it through the performance, because I was just not afraid. It's because if you dive into the words, like really deep dive into the words, and you apply them to what you not going through, but how far you made it, right? It can break you down, not in a bad way, in a good way. And I was just like, one of our colleagues, and I shared the story with you. When I came on stage, my eyes, I don't know if you know, my eyes was watery.
Oh, yes, I saw it. I gotta get you a napkin.
Right, I was trying to, because one of our colleagues came up to me and they said, "Oh my God, you moved me to tears." And I'm just like, "Stop it!" Like I like right now, I don't know why I'm emotional.
Can we wait? Is this colleague someone I know too?
Yeah, our friend.
Wait, can we?
You and somebody else. So
okay, I think I know who it is, but
yeah,
we want to give a.
You already
we
know.
love you. We know. We love you, Kyle.
So yeah, in college,
subscribe, Kyle.
Sweetheart, talented guy, sweetheart, one of the nicest people I've met.
Kyle.
While in this later part of my journey, but I was like this close to just like breaking down. I was just like, and I'm thankful that I did. And I looked over to, you know, Dr. M, and he had the biggest cheese smile on his face. And when we
Yes,
walked
Dr.
off, he was like,
M.
oh my God, it was so good. And even when I sang it for our voice teacher, you know what he said? He said, I understand why you picked it. And see, as much slack as I want to give him sometimes, the
He
man knows
understood the assignment. He understood the
the man know
assignment.
his stuff. Because remember, I had sang for you and Kyle the piece that I was originally going to do, but
Yeah.
just so happened the way fate works out, just so happens that and we're gonna wrap up. I know it's getting long. So what happened was there was another student singing the same piece that I was going to sing, and what happened was the student was younger and newer, not newer in the sense newer to music than I
Yeah.
was. It was easier for me to switch a piece than it would have been for him.
For him
So
to the last minute, yeah.
Right. So they asked me, you know, could I change at the last minute? Could I change my piece? And I've been in the music for a while, so I have a lot of rep. That wasn't my thing. I was just a little. I wanted to sing something that I had been working on, you know. So I go through some pieces and I said, Terrence, maybe this is the opportunity for you to just do something slightly different. And I said, okay, let me sing, because I already knew that nobody on the program was going to be singing something featuring an African American composer. So I said, you know
Yeah.
what? Let me. Nothing wrong with that. I wanted to be different. So I said, let me pick. I picked two pieces. It was There's a Bomb in Gilead, and then there was the Soliloquy. So we sang through both of them. But when we finished through Soliloquy, he said, that's the one. He said, we're going to work on this next week. And then the following week, I think was the recital. He said, we're going to work on it next week and you'll be fine. He said, I understand why you picked
Why
it.
you picked it.
It sounds fabulous. I love it. He said he was aware of the composer, but like a few people said, you know, they had never heard that specific piece. So
yeah, no, I'm telling you people, if you're interested, please go onto the Aaron Colton School of Music website and look up the voice recitals major. It is the one that has, what was it? I believe it was almost 2 months ago now.
November 22nd, I believe, 21st.
Yes. If you, and please, and it also, if you're interested in this piece, it is beautiful. It was timeless. It literally, it was the encore, in my opinion, of everything that was going. And
I want to re-record it. I really want to. I want to like re-record it in a more relaxed setting where my nerves are not as bad.
Yeah, but I couldn't tell you were nervous. I'm sitting over here just like I look at the
boy,
profession, finish it all off.
Clenching that piano, that's my thing. See, normally I would have just, you know, been a little freer, but I felt my palms were sweaty. And so I said, let me just hold on to you know how us singers do. We hold on to the side of the piano to try to create this. But I was really holding on for dear life.
No, I'm telling you. Oh, we need to. I think we should have a conversation about that. Our first recital at that school, because I mean, we had no practice in that room. We had no idea what the acoustics were like. It was such a stressful. It was kind of, you sit in the audience, run over, perform, come back, support your peers. COVID got us all messed up. Who chose the time for this recital we need to have a little sit down, because this was just completely who, honestly, like, we enjoy recitals in the evening. We would like to go home, have lunch, prepare, you know, some of us do not live in the area. That's just you know, I think there needs to be more because I mean, it's just like, that's what we're presenting at the school. Make sure your students are in tip-top shape and prepared to deliver what you've been teaching them all semester.
So one quick question before, period on what he said, but one quick question before we end it. Were you more nervous in the recital or in the opera?
I was more nervous in the recital.
Me too.
I'm gonna tell, yeah.
Me too. I thought you was gonna say that. The same. I was so much more nervous. Go ahead. Tell me why.
No, it's because and of course the opera. I mean, you're taking on a character. Like, the costume is kind of elevating everything. So even if you're kind of, you know, unsure about something, you're like, you know, I didn't see myself as me. in that opera. I really did it. There's times where I realized it was me, but then there's times where I'm just like, I gotta be a villain. I gotta be something that kind of like, I kind of don't, feel somewhat all the time comfortable being just an evil entity. But in that recital, it was like, okay, I gotta be prepared to, this is my first time singing for these people. Like,
Thank
and
you.
I'm just like, we've already been hyped up to be these like great incoming transfers. So it's like we already have these expectations on us. Like I'm looking at all these students that are of the school. Like I saw they were a little nervous, but I think that it was relieving it to them in a way because they saw how nervous I was. Like there was
No, you didn't seem nervous.
Oh no, you didn't see. You know who you got asked? Yeah, I'll tell you after this whole podcast. But there was one student. She was right after. Oh damn! Y'all gotta go back and be like, who was after him? Like,
Oh, I know who was
like,
after. Wait,
yeah. So she, huh?
who was after? Oh,
It was Selena. Selena, cute
oh,
Selena. We
Kyle
love you,
sang before
Selena.
you.
Yeah, Kyle sang before
He
me.
sang
I'm talking
before
about who
you.
was
Okay.
after me because I literally was sitting there, and I mean, and she's such a sweet doll. She is. You
Yes.
know what, Selena? You have such a good heart, girl. If you're listening to us, thank you for being you. I was sitting back there and I remember I turned to her and I said, and I don't know why I said this, I'm just like, I am so nervous right now. And like I can only imagine the deer in headlights I gave her because she stared at me like, what is he talking about? Like, she's given me so many compliments along the way since I've been there. So I think she's like, you're gonna do fine, like go out there. And then as soon as I'm walking out, it's kind of like heart beating. I see Dr. M standing there, like he's over here grinning, like, come on, Yvonne, like, let's do what we've been practicing. I look out to the audience that's technically not there because it was like only the student body.
Right.
But I mean, it was more nerve wracking. It's because I'm singing in front of my peers. So it's kind of like I have to kind of let my peers know that, not in a competitive way, but to let them know that I pride myself as a good performer. And, I pride myself of being worthy to be here with all of them, because it's like as much as we could all be in different levels and stages of our technique and our career and where we are all still in a learning process. So I am not better than you.
You
You
should
are not
always
better
be,
than
even
me.
when you, not to cut you off, when you're
Mhm.
in this profession, you should always be in a learning process.
Always. It should always be something that you're fully embracing and taking everything on because as soon as I was done with that recital, we all had the commonality saying, oh my God, I've never sung in that hall before. It made my voice sound so small. I felt like people couldn't hear me. I felt I was over singing. I felt that I wasn't singing enough. It was like when I literally listened to everyone, I literally sat there and I said, I'm not the only one.
Yeah,
I
especially the
was
bigger
not the
voice
only one.
people. I was like the bigger voice people. Like we we all felt like, I don't know. I felt like I was singing in a dead spot. Um,
Mm-hmm.
everybody said they heard me fine, which I'm grateful for. But I
Oh,
did
it was
feel like I was
beautiful.
I felt like I was singing in a dead spot. But that's because normally you test the hall out. And I know they don't like to do this when it's a bunch of people, but sometimes you need to move the piano back and you need to maybe stand further back or stand closer to the front of the stage. And
Well,
there's,
that's something that, but that's something else that should have been addressed. I'm not trying to be all tea, all shade, but there should have been some dress rehearsals in that auditorium because, I mean, just like with any performance, you're going to have to perform in there so people understand the dynamics and the acoustics in that space. So when all these singers are coming in and they've been practicing in a smaller room with, less acoustics. And I mean, when you go into Lafrac, it's almost as if like even performing Dido, there were times where once I figured out kind of like how the acoustics worked, I'm just like, okay, now I know when I can give and when I can back off, when I don't have to, and then when I heard the feedback from even my families and friends that attended the performance, they're like, oh no, we heard you. Like it was like a wall of sound. Like trust us, it hit us. So that I'm just like, but singing on the stage and that recital, I'm telling you, I was so. Even when I look back on it, I am so proud of myself for getting up and going up there and performing and presenting something that has almost rarely ever done. Just like you did, you picked something that was kind of I felt that,
and I went after you know who. So
oh yeah. Yeah, I mean, but I mean at the end of the day, I mean, all tea, all shade. I mean, I still think that, you know, the transfers, we held it down
we did.
This semester at
I
Aaron
cannot
Copeland.
wait to hear I can't wait to hear this next one that we have in mind.
Yes.
I just want to
I think because I think there's a composer that everybody gonna run to now, you know, and I think it's about time that, you know, we show some Mozart. We let them know the dynamics of this prolific composer. But I would really, you know, I'm so happy too that this podcast exists now, so that you as listeners and as friends and as colleagues and as people who are just kind of like always been interested in what we do, you're literally still witnessing kind of like a journey, a chapter right now that is kind of maneuvering through. So, you know, I'm just so excited. I'm so excited for what this year is to bring.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you know, and I think we should just kind of end it there today and kind of like, you know, kind of let it marinate and, you know, see where we're going to take it for our next episode. And definitely kind of when things start moving, I would really love if the listeners, people that, you know, are subscribing to us and are really kind of like in our corner. And there's so many of you. Like once I relate this idea to family and friends, they're kind of like about time we get to really talk about the things that we refrain from sometimes. So yeah, just thank you all so much for your support. Those that are like patrons, future patrons. And we hope to one day eventually just bring others into our chats so that, you know, we can get perspectives of students that are in school now, people that are wanting to be there, people that have finished, and just, you know, all different walks of life in our career, you know. That's what we're hoping. So
everything he said plus tax. So like the good Tabitha said, y'all enjoy y'all day, and if you're having a bad one, don't go around messing nobody else's day up, okay?
Please don't. Please don't. Please don't.
Until we meet again, my friends.